Right. Yeah, thank you for welcoming me. I'm René Kriegler, Director e-commerce at OpenSource Connections. And together with Charlie Hall, I'm probably the only person who has attended all of these 10 Haystack events. And I think that's now a good time to look at where we are as a community and where we are in what we are dealing with at our events. And I think many of these things are just happening, but at some point it might make sense to make ourselves aware what is going on and approach these things more consciously. And that's what I want to do in my talk. I want to start with a bit of a history. Where did it all start and why? And then move on to where we are today. Well, it all started in a pub in Charlottesville, Virginia. So it started in a pub called Random Row, which is quite a nice name for the data scientists, I guess. And I think it had to start in a pub because Haystack is a lot about socializing, networking with people, finding friends in your kind of business, finding your peers. And I think that was a bit emblematic. The pub is located next to our office in Charlottesville, at the old office. And the sessions basically happened in the pub and at our office. So that was the kind of opening session. The photo was taken at the opening session there. Nevertheless, we are OpenSource Connections, started this event as a company. So why would a company start a conference like this, Haystack, the Search Relevance Conference? As a company, we are committed to helping our clients to get good search done. As Charlie has mentioned, we do this through many means: consulting, providing guidance, trainings, providing a lot of content, providing a lot of tools. But this does not necessarily connect to search relevance. And to understand why search relevance became a thing for that conference and why it's become the Search Relevance Conference at the time, I want to look back at the time and where we were. There was a time when search relevance was not a thing at all. Yeah, so the older generation in this room might remember this. Around, let's say, between 2010, 2015, there was a lot going on in the realm of big data. Yeah, so search was all about scalability and maybe retrieving data from retrieving information from huge amounts of data and make this work fast or maybe in real time. And that was the focus. No mentioning of relevance, or only a very small group did that. Yeah, and even our CEO and founder was thinking a lot about facets and UI, and that was what search is going to be. And how can we make a business out of that? I would say fast, so 2010, right? So obviously not even 2015, I would say. And then there was a group of people like Dr. Turnbull, John Berryman, who have written this book, Relevant Search, and myself were convinced that search relevance is a thing. If you want to help the users, we cannot bring back messy results, imprecise results, or miss out on results that they really need. Yeah. So for us, the focus really was on relevance, and we could see that this topic of relevance was also getting a bit of traction in the community. So I'm stealing some slides from Doug Turnbull. Yeah, so also the previous one was from Doug. So he looked at talks at Berlin Buzzwords and how they would deal with search relevance. And he found maybe small numbers, yeah, but still there was a bit of a growing interest in relevance. And at the time, that was connected a lot with learning to rank. Yeah, so learning to rank brought the kind of coolness, machine learning to search. So folks suddenly got interested more in search relevance and optimizing their search. So we thought search relevance is becoming more and more important, and we want to take that to a community. Doug gave a talk at the first Haystack in the US called the Keystone, and in this talk he emphasized on the community. Yeah, so we should be a community that should be driven by openness, sharing, and open source technologies. So that was one of the foundations besides search relevance that was super important for us when we started the event and the community. So why openness, why sharing, why open source tools? And Doug actually liked this metaphor of a plunger. And I can tell you that in our office in Charlottesville, we have a golden plunger. Yeah, so that was such a key thing to us, the commoditization of tools. Yeah, so basically he said, maybe sometime 1850 to 1900, someone with the domain expertise, a plumber, would think, okay, I need a plunger to get this thing done. And then it became an expert tool, yeah, so for quite some time. And then nowadays, many households have such a thing. If the system works badly, they can help themselves easily using that tool. And he took this as a metaphor onto our community. What does it mean for us in our community? If you look at tools that we had at the time in the community, let's say no LTR easily available, the ranking not working properly, synonyms a nightmare to maintain, no tools for evaluating search relevance, that would put us into this state. Yeah, and then you spend a lot of time to adapt the tools to your needs, to actually be able to use them in production. Yeah, and that time basically steals a lot of focus from you. Yeah, so that time is kind of wasted, not wasted in that specific project, but if you look at all the teams that solve the same problems, then you would say that's not how it should be. Yeah, and then you have a lot less time on your secret sauce, so to say, on things that you really want to do, and that give you that competitive advantage. If we fix the tools, using out of the box open source or being able to use those mature tools, then we spend less time on being able to productionize the tools and then go really deep, have more time to go deep and provide better solutions within our domain, provide better solutions to our users. So that was the mindset with which Haystack was started, and we meant it. Yeah, so maybe in his slides, Doug took it a bit far. Yeah, join or die. Yeah, so we really have to do open source, but we as a company meant it. So we created tools like the Learning to Rank plugin for Elasticsearch or Cupid for search evaluation, and also the community, not just us as OpenSource Connections, the Haystack community really took off. A lot on tooling, but also a lot on the exchange of minds and sharing ideas, sharing best practices. I would add to this that sharing best practices is also part of table stakes. Yeah, this is not your secret sauce. Yeah, so there's no competitive advantage in knowing how to measure search. Yeah, so this is something you have to do. Everyone has to do it. The competitive advantage really is in that part here where you understand your users, and then based on the tools, on mature tools, you create solutions that really fix that problem or create joy for your users. 5 years on, things have changed considerably. And first of all, we have had a lot of events, the community has grown, and as we've mentioned, this is the 10th time where we have such a conference. We had, in addition, a number of other events like Haystack on Tour. So we went to the communities in Europe, to Paris, Krakow, and Barcelona, and just to see how the community is organized there, is structured there, and help them join the movement, so to say. We are also running a Haystack meetup group online, and this has grown to 1,400 members. So every month, we don't have to travel to the same place, all of us. I think this has started during the pandemic, giving us a forum to connect more easily in a smaller format to talk about search relevance and search. And last but not least, we have our relevance Slack, which has now about 4,500 members. This is quite huge. Yeah. So, and if you go through all the channels there, you can really see how deep some discussions are and how committed most of the community members are about sharing their knowledge. And sometimes it's really good just asking questions. So if you're not on this channel, please or consider joining. This is a trove of knowledge. And in addition to that, around that, we have a lot of groups that are somehow related to Haystack, like Women of Search, that are part of the community, but focus on a specific topic, which I think is a great thing, so that and a good sign that the community really took off. Let's look at the subject matter. What did we talk about? What problems, what ideas did we discuss at the time, and what are we discussing nowadays? So the first events were a lot, and still are, the events still are, about understanding search relevance. It's shifting a bit to general search quality. So help us understand how we can measure it, how we can improve it. Offline evaluation has been a great or an important topic. The tools around it, the methods, the processes around this, case studies. This is crucial for or has been crucial for what we're talking about. Click models, so deriving feedback from users from tracking is a recurrent topic. And then the tooling in the beginning focused a lot on Solr, Elasticsearch, Lucene, knowledge graphs, named entity recognition, how to maintain synonyms, all that, named entity recognition, and then of course LTR as a very focal topic. I think the elephant in the room is a bit AI that we would have today. I want to mention that even at the first Haystack, we had talks about using vectors for retrieval or ranking. We had a talk that introduced Vespa, so our community had started in this realm of AI very early, but the focus definitely was on more classic techniques. Let's look at the keynote talk from Haystack US this year. Multimodal vector search, Craig Ranger, the age of generative search. So it's a completely different approach, or not completely different, but a new approach where the focus is shifting towards the exploitation of the means we can get from AI to improve our search. So that was a very recurrent topic, and it also was a very recurrent topic at Haystack EU last year. So I went through the talks just to base this a bit on numbers. So Haystack US this year, 8 out of 19 talks were about AI, search-related AI, including the keynote that I just mentioned. Also last year's Haystack EU opened with a keynote talk on vector search by Dimitri Khan, and then half of the talks had a connection with AI. It's also been a topic at our tour events. So the Haystack on tour events always have a barcamp tile. So we had talks around vector search, and then during the barcamp it became very evident that AI vector search is what people are interested in and what they are doing. The talks around this topic, I think, reflect kind of an early adoption, oftentimes POCs. Yeah, so we want to understand how vector search works, what's in it for us. But then at the Haystack US this year, we also had the first case study. What about if you put it into production? And I think that was really, really valuable. And then also about fundamentals around that. And how-tos, I think that's how we evolve towards the AI direction. So I find this exciting. Yeah, so something new is coming up, a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of need to understand. Yeah, so I think an individual cannot go through all this alone. Not even a single company can do this all on their own. So we have to speak about it, make it a topic, and make it a conscious thing. Yeah, to accept that this is the that these are the new tools that we need to understand and that we can use. Outside our world, I think AI is becoming so ubiquitous, and especially AI for search. So I don't know, someone might recognize this place. So this is the kind of newspaper shop at Berlin Friedrichstraße. Yeah, so where you can buy news magazines. And there's this corner where you get like the makers magazines, computer magazines, etc. And then not too long ago, I think it was in July, there's a special issue of this magazine, and it says, neural search, build your own. Yeah, so this is for the broader masses, yeah, for the broader audience, not just for us experts. Yeah, so it becomes ubiquitous. It always looks like a commodity. Yeah, and I remember this magazine printing an article, I think it was by Uwe Schindler and Isabel Drost-Fromm, about using Lucene for search. That was maybe 15 years ago. And now neural search is so ubiquitous. Yeah, so that's like a fundamental thing for us to use if the kind of hobby programmers, hobby information retrieval workers are already using it. So it looks like we are witnessing a paradigm shift in search towards AI. This does not mean that keyword search, traditional search techniques are dead. Yeah, so it just means it's a new tool that we need to understand and exploit, but it is based on great advances in technology. Conceptually, we can now do conversational AI, and it's feasible in terms of the platform. Yeah, it's becoming tools that are available by just using a service, by just downloading and fine-tuning a model. So this becomes a lot more available, and the more we can try out. I think this is a great situation. Also, especially in our domain, the tools more and more integrate what we need for search. Yeah, so platforms for retrieving documents based on vector embeddings very fast. Also, the traditional search tools expand into this direction. So I think that's really becoming tools that are available easily for us. And then a lot of venture capital is going into this market. So I think that's also something we need. Yeah, so a market, an investment in what we want to do. So let's look a bit more at what that means for our community. If you look at the use cases, it might broaden. Yeah, so maybe we're not talking just about search in the traditional sense, but we might embrace new use cases. Yeah? And I've listed a few here. This is not a limitation, but more meant as an inspiration. I think vector search is the one. Semantic retrieval based on vector search is the one that many of us have already approached. Result re-ranking based on embeddings, a new classifier maybe telling us this is relevant or not based on vector embeddings. So there's a lot of opportunity in semantic retrieval. Maybe we have a use case where we want to backfill results if you have 0 results, or some even trying to use this as the primary retrieval mode. So we're getting our hands on it, and this is basically an extension within the realm of the classic retrieval use case, but being capable of applying semantic retrieval. Question answering is not so new to our domain, but nowadays it involves a huge generative component. So it involves natural language understanding, fact retrieval, but also generation of answers. And that's a new domain. Yeah, so how would we evaluate a generated answer? It might look different each time with a little a change in the system or at all. So I think that's a interesting but difficult domain. Query interpretation in the sense of classifying queries is yet another domain. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in it for us. We have been doing this before, but now using the available models, it becomes a lot more precise and more powerful. And we can exploit this for many things. Yeah, so we can say it's not just about finding the right products and the right categories. It could also be about showing the right facets. Yeah, so if you know this query, if you can interpret the query so that we say, oh, this shoots at, let's say, tablets, then we show the right facets for tablets based on that prediction. So there's a lot of things in it that we can do. Summarization, that's another powerful use case based on generative AI. So we can summarize the search result list, or can try to summarize the search result list. That's a completely different interaction pattern. So I don't have to go through my 10 blue links, but get a summary of the results, and then links to the sources. Yeah, and it would be interesting to hear who has made some experience in that field and understand how users interact with this. I think there's a lot to be learned in it. And then summarization is also applicable to documents. What snippets do we show? Passage highlighting. So we can maybe no longer highlight keywords in context. If we don't do a keyword search, if we do a vector search, we have to find the right passage to help the user understand why this result was shown. Retrieval augmented generation is a big topic, so basically means we have now a conversational AI that can run a dialogue and generate answers, but also understand questions in the first place. This is I mean, conversational UX has been around for some time, but now search gets a completely new aspect if we have to provide the content for this chatbot to get up-to-date information to produce the answers from. Yeah, and that's a completely different type of evaluation, different type of search. Queries look different, result evaluation is different. So that's an interesting domain. Nevertheless, it's related to our domain of search, not just because we provide this backfill, but also the retrieval per se, the whole integrated perspective on that. How good is that conversation for the user, because it's a information retrieval use case. And last but not least, content augmentation is an important use case. So get us better data to provide results, even using keyword search. So generate missing data or classify documents into categories to help with filtering. So as I said, that's just an inspiration, but you get the idea that this becomes a lot bigger. But we have been doing many of these beforehand. So let's embrace this in our community. So the fundamental idea, what puts this all together, I think, is we help the user get done something in the real world based on retrieving information. Yeah, actively interacting with the system to elicit some information. And this is search is one of those cases. But if you look at the conversational AI, it's broadening. How should we do that? How should we organize ourselves? How should we interact with each other? Charlie has given a nice, oh, look at him. He's juggling again. So, yeah. I don't know, some of you might have seen that keynote as a video. And I think he had a very great metaphor for the fact how a community can really empower each other. He compared jugglers to magicians. Yeah, so a magician might patent their trick. Yeah, so they want to hide their knowledge. But jugglers have a very strong community, and it's about teaching each other, sharing knowledge so that everyone can do it. And then it gets crazy difficult what you can juggle. But you depend on your knowledge, and the knowledge comes from the community. Yeah? And I think let's be jugglers. Yeah? So let's not be magicians. That doesn't work. And I think even in this, especially in this domain of AI, where everything seems new, we really depend on each other. Yeah, so not everyone has to make the same mistakes. I've pulled out the hype cycle from Gartner. I don't know how many are familiar with that, because sometimes AI is seen a bit as a hype. So basically, they have this idea that new technologies go through a cycle, though it's not a cycle, but anyway. So they say there's something triggers the technology, mainly based on research, and then everyone becomes excited about it, so that there's a peak of the hype, and then we have a bit of negative press, so things are not that nice as they seemed originally. Some suppliers fail, get out of the market, but then there's still new investment into this. And so dissolution, at some point we reach a plateau where we really become productive in this new technology. I don't know whether this is valid model, but I think it helps us think about where we are. And Gartner has supplied an AI hype cycle for 2023. And basically they say for AI, in terms of foundation model, generative AI, we are at the peak of the hype. Yeah? This is an interesting aspect, I would say. On the other hand, if we as Open Source Connections look at what we see at companies, everyone invests into AI as if we had already gone through this. Yeah, if we are already reaching the stage where we would start to become productive and approaching this plateau. This is great on the one hand side. Yeah, so you get investment into real life projects. Yeah, so you can try this out, and I think this is really empowered by the maturity of the tools that we already have. Yeah, I think that's a good situation. On the other hand, it can put a lot of stress on us. Yeah, so we know things might not really work. Yeah, so we haven't done all that. So no one has really gone out of the market, and it's still early days. And I think we depend on each other in the community to somehow sustain the stress, as bad as it sounds. Yeah, so there will be experiences that are not so nice, failures. And as Charlie said in the opening, it's important also to share the failures. We don't all have to repeat that. Let's go through this quickly. It's okay to fail, and then learn from that and make it better, and then approach the plateau more quickly. And I think that's what we can do as a community. Share the insights around AI so that we can all move faster and with greater confidence. So when we conquer AI together, there are so many aspects that we need to cover. And again, I want to use that as an inspiration, not as a limitation. So fundamental is the technology. Yeah, so we have new databases around, mainly open source, which is a great thing. We have added vector search to OpenSearch, Elasticsearch, and Solr, so we can use our kind of home turf to get started with vectors. I think that's a great thing. The integration of services and platforms looks very easy. Still, there might be something we can learn about it and share about it. Basically, we hear this question a lot, which one should we use and how? I think that's a recurrent theme. If you look at foundation models, so models, maybe like GPT models or models that are pre-trained and that we want to use, an important question is how to find the right model to start off from, the right model that we will later fine-tune. And we ran a training yesterday and before yesterday on understanding and measuring search result quality, and we had a section on evaluating AI. And a part of this was evaluating models, and then we felt like, okay, there should be like a forum where everyone can share their experience with the model. It was like, what are you using? What are you using? And then we looked at the different domains. So I think that's a very important aspect that we need to cover. But we also need to understand how to fine-tune. Yeah, what's the performance of that? How long does it take? How do I get the data for that? How do I evaluate the model after fine-tuning? And how do the models perform in production? There also is this aspect of the creation of the models. Yeah, so that involves open models, closed models. So that has an aspect of ethics. Yeah, so did the people who provided the content on which the model was trained agree that the consent that the model can be used for this, or that their data that they created can be used to it? The models might have an aspect of specific culture. Yeah, yesterday we had this example. In the English culture, cake is a dessert. That's not in my German culture. Yeah, so how do we evaluate that in the model? So there are lots of things. And license, of course, is another very important aspect if, let's say, we want to fine-tune. Another aspect that we really need to conquer together is the specifics of the concrete task. Yeah, so let's say we have a retrieval augmented generation, a chatbot. There are several layers. Yeah, so there's the task of bringing back results to backfill the bot to provide the context, but then also evaluate that task of providing a good conversation, running a dialogue, stop at a certain point or go deeper, or refuse to say some things. Yeah, so and we need to understand how we evaluate at all these levels. Yeah, so if it is a vector search, how can we evaluate orthographic tolerance, robustness? Yeah, so there might be specific test methods. How do we test semantics, etc.? We might decide on new metrics, or have to understand better how we can use the existing metrics and in which context. Also, a recurrent topic that we've seen in vector search, yeah, related to this specific retrieval task, is, okay, we retrieve the k nearest neighbors. How do we cut off when it becomes imprecise? Yeah, so that's discussions that we're already leading or running, but not all of them. Some might become more and more important. We also need to understand better the use cases. What's the overall performance of our solution for that use case? So I've mentioned the conversational models, but also vector search long tail queries. How do we evaluate that? How do we provide a good solution to cope with long tail queries that might contain a lot of spelling mistakes, but could also be, we don't have results for this precise query, and now we bring back something. Is this good enough or is it not? We bring this something back based on vector search, which is fine and great, but where should we cut off? The user experience. Yeah, so AI-based solutions might create a new user experience or put at the center some experience that had already existed. So we've been using conversational UX for quite some time. So we should know that we shouldn't prompt for a color by its name, but maybe show an icon. Yeah, but if you look at chatbot implementations, they don't really do that. And we need to understand that better. Also, when to use a chatbot. We might go to something that Peter Morville sketched out in his book, Search Patterns, about domain expertise versus search expertise, how to search, be an expert in it or not. So a chatbot might be a good solution if we don't have the domain expertise early in our, let's say, choice or decision-making process. That means if we don't have the search, or if you're missing either of the expertises, right? So we don't know how to search for it, or we don't know what to search for. Yeah? So early in our process, we might not know the keywords to search for, but we can describe it more verbally. So there is a lot of things we can take over or that we can use from existing knowledge, but we need to do this consciously and not assume that things work the same just using AI. The business part of it, of course, also needs evaluation and better understanding. So how does AI help the business? Yeah, so if you go back to 2018, there was a Gartner report. Why does AI fail? Why do AI projects fail? And 85% of the projects failed, actually. And the main reason was unclear requirements. If I say, just use AI, do something with AI, then you don't know how you're being measured. Yeah? And that could be measurements around customer experience, but could also be measurement around productivity. We don't have to maintain synonyms. That could be an increase in productivity, but we want to measure that. And we want to have clarity that synonyms is what we focus on. We need to understand the opportunities in the first place. It could also be about not harming the business. Yeah, so all that needs better understanding and a discussion in the community so that we can conquer it together. And last but not least, that's something that I hope for, especially once we master AI, once we understand the tools, then we can become creative. Yeah, so when we create the trust in the tools, when we know what they do, when we know we can rely on them, then we can create entirely new solutions that we are not thinking of today, new applications of AI. Yeah, and that would be really great and a really great progress. So my point here is, let's do that together. Yeah, so not everyone sit at their desks and keep their experience for themselves, ask questions, have the discussion within our community. So bringing it all together, I think we can say now, if we look at Haystack 2023 and at the community, the scope of what we are covering at this conference has broadened from traditional search to related use cases. So use cases like, let's say, the chatbot, all focusing on retrieval, and then, of course, AI. We are moving beyond search relevance. Yeah, so this is retrieval quality. Yeah, I'm still struggling to find the cover term. Yeah? Retrieval is also very broad. So if someone has a good cover term for all these techniques, somehow like satellites around search, I pay a beer. Yeah, so let me know. And then most importantly, the community has to be based on the principles of openness and sharing. Yeah? Our insights will help us, will guide us through this and help us conquer AI. And to close the loop, back to open source connections, we are not sad that we are moving beyond relevance. Yeah, so the principles of openness are still ours, and search and AI is still what we do for our clients. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, René. So, setting the direction. I think we've got a couple of minutes for questions if anyone has a question for René.
Hi, thanks for the talk. And my question is Better like this?
It works.
Okay. So given your experience working in this domain, what I see happening a lot from my experience is that we tend to focus very much on a setup of the problem. Instead of helping the user, we have a search system. User comes along, they're looking for some information or some product or some item. So we model this with a query, get back set of results, and we can see, okay, are these results good? Does the user interact with them? Or do they get anything out of it, what they want? If so, fine. And then in comes new AI. We have some conversational search, and this kind of breaks this whole setup. So we start thinking, okay, what do we need to fix? What did we not take into account? What do we now need to take into account? But to me, that feels like we already got it wrong previously. Like if a person comes to your website, app, whatever, and wants something, it's not about the search query that they fire. It's not about this little set of results. They typically have like an overarching,
right?
I want to buy a laundry machine, or I want to listen to the latest hit of, I don't know, famous pop singer. So for me, it feels like we're focusing really on some abstraction that we made that is a nice decomposition of a complex problem. But then we're stuck with this decomposition.
I really like your.
How do we move beyond?
I really like your observation, and I would say it's not about. You said it's not about search. It's not. It's about buying something, but then the buying also is just an indicator of wanting to solve yet another problem, and I think this is applicable to any type of retrieval situation. I would say even to any type of product in the end, and search is just a means to solve that. We are definitely seeing that, and that's also, by the way, why we started this new training, go beyond relevance and go more towards understanding users. And we just went the first step where we said, okay, there's more search result quality aspects than just relevance. But then you're totally right. There is this aspect of understanding what's happening in the real world. What is the concern of the users? And there are methods around that. So it's basically, it requires a heavy focus on user research. So, and then, I mean, we are in a position nowadays where we have great solutions, and sometimes we are looking for the problem, but we should really start from the problem and then try to find the matching solution, and maybe even provide this creativity if you can't find that matching solution. So I totally agree. So it's a problem that is more fundamental than just using a different tool, so to say.
Thank you. So I think we've got time for another question, if someone has one.
Oh, it's just another afterthought to this, but please. And I hope this will also happen in the community here, so that we can talk about these things from the user experience perspective.
With you going into AI for search, I was wondering if you have seen stuff that you used to do in the traditional search pipeline that you replaced with AI. For example, I know for text search, usually we have lots of focus on stop words, but in the new LLM model, it's usually said that you should keep everything. So have you seen like stuff that were removed by using AI in traditional search pipelines?
I'm not quite getting the answer, so I assume you're asking, do we see cases where the AI removes aspects of the queries and ignores them? Yes, I think that happens. And I think that's the case why I would say as of now, the best application of, let's say, semantic retrieval will be as an additional use cases, an additional search pass, where you say, I tried keyword search first and then do that based on retrieval, because then, based on semantic retrieval, because then you're mitigating a zero result situation and still find related stuff. What I've seen in practice is using vectors as the first retrieval might work, but not in domains that heavily rely on precision. So like e-commerce, that can be problematic. Yeah, but it can be a very nice and great solution to mitigate zero-design situations. And I still hope that we can move towards using vectors always, and maybe someone has achieved that. But what I've seen in real life, it's better if you use it for the zero-designs.
Right, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, René Kriegler.
Thank you.